All right, and welcome to another episode of the Integrate This podcast. I'm your host, Bryan O'Doherty, author of the Brotoland blog at brotoland.wordpress.com.
I am Marshall Eon, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I work with the Enneagram and the Diamond Approach and Integral Theory, and I am the sheriff of the Trans-Apocalyptic Oasis Facebook group. And today, we have a special guest here. We're going to be talking about QAnon. And we have a big Q fan here to maybe help dispel some of the myths around Q, or at least give it a sort of full-throated defense.
Right. The whole give it the steel man, and see if we can.
So I'm going to be
some truth here.
Wait. So he's going to be steel manning. I'm going to be straw manning.
I'm the intermediary. I'm in the middle. Yeah.
Okay. What's
because
between?
I've actually, so a little bit of background is I know we've discussed these things on Facebook, the Facebook group, the Oasis, and other Facebook groups prior. But I've been following Q a little bit, but not like deeply. So it's great to have Jason on because I know that he knows a lot more about it, and so welcome, Jason.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
So let's start. I guess we could start with this, which is that from my perspective, viewing the Q phenomenon from what I hope is a somewhat neutral, mindset. One thing I notice is that the mainstream media, when they invariably attack the Q phenomenon as some sort of right-wing fringe thing, they characterize it in a funny way. They always characterize it as a conspiracy group that believes that the government is in control of like elite pedophile, blah, 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 blah. And they push that really hard. But in my experience in just kind of observing Q, he doesn't talk about it that often. I mean, mostly what he talks about is like what's going on in the government between the various factions, kind of what's happening, kind of gives an alternate view on what we should be looking for in these these various dramas that are playing out in Senate hearings and yada yada. It's very, very sort of, kind of just political and not really. I mean, there's not a whole lot of that.
Kind of
there
like
is some of that, but there's not a whole lot of it. It's not the main thrust of it, from what I could see. Do you have
like C-SPAN on acid or something like that?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, kind of.
But wait. I want to.
It's funny.
Interject. Didn't that change recently, Jason? Like, wasn't there some long list of all the political arrests? Wasn't there recently a Q drop, a giant Q drop that listed all of the sex offenders?
And that may count as the longest Q drop of them all. There's a few that are, maybe a couple pages long, but that was a huge list. That was a huge list. Yeah. One thing I'd like to point out about what Brian said is that's currently the case. But if you go back to when there were first smatterings of MSM coverage trying to, mark something around the Q thing, they didn't say all that about elite pedophile rings. I remember times where they characterized it as a meta conspiracy theory. They said it was not understandable. They've gone through a few different phases where they've got a talking point.
Yeah.
And the uniformity of produced articles from the MSM is pretty amazing part of the Q phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're totally correct. Most people are thinking Q. Well, God, I don't want to try to pretend I know what most people are thinking. But you're dealing with something that's probably thousands of pages if you tried to print up just what Q's drops amount to. Depends on font size, but it's a huge document. And if you look at that, you've got things that are very long posts, like you say, maybe about FISA or different Senate hearings or what would be going on regarding impeachment,
Mm-hmm.
things that go back to Saudi Arabia, things that do have to do with Jeffrey Epstein and other elite pedophile-related stuff. And then you've got all sorts of drops that are a picture or a code stringer. So there's a real lack of symmetry and organization to how we, if you just open up the Q archives, you're going to see all this stuff. And I think people tend to characterize it, maybe they've glanced at this, that, or the other, or somebody fed them a talking point. It's a very complicated document.
Yeah, and recently, I've started to notice that the mainstream media coverage is now characterizing it as dangerous,
Mm-hmm.
dangerous extremists.
Yeah, that is another thing that I've noticed as well.
I guess as it gets closer to the election, the coverage,
Mm-hmm.
they're saying it's all dangerous, and I'm like, wait a second, are you guys paying any attention to what's going on your side of things? The dangerous extremists on the left.
I'd like to talk about.
Not really. Okay.
There's a huge disparity in that way, a total hypocrisy regarding what protesters are doing and actual damage as compared to, QAnon's dangerous. But they're predicating that on a couple of instances. The most ridiculous one is that there was a fellow arrested for murdering a Gambino mob boss. Do either one of you guys happen to remember who Richard Ramirez is? A serial killer from the 1980s?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And he ended up on heavy metal albums with a pentagram on his hand. Okay, like he went into court, and all the mainstream media at the time showed this picture. I remember it from like high school, and he had a pentagram either cut or drawn on his hand. And here's the serial killer. His name's Richard Ramirez, Southern California. When the guy killed the Gambino mob boss, which is like, wait, what? The story is he was inspired by Q. He drives to this guy's house because he knew where it was somehow, because the Anons are amazing. He, I don't know, rings the bell or honks the horn, and this guy comes out and he shoots him in the face, and then he gets arrested. And they report all that, and then they show him in his courtroom with a Q on his hand, right? They used that whole Richard Ramirez narrative and like the memory stain of like, we did this to you guys decades ago, gave you like a media story and blah, blah. And they painted up this Q character with this, and they gave him like the crazy, like he pleaded insanity, which I think Richard Ramirez did as well. So in that story, you just have like cream of the crop example of like, the media is putting this out. What I just told you is the official story. But it's like, wait. He killed a Gambino mob boss? How do you do that? And does it have anything to do with elite pedophile ring? Was this a staged thing? Was this false flag that the deep state would have planted their own activist or something? Or vice versa, is this a staged by Q thing? It's a really outrageous example, and there's some sort of media manipulation, memory, amnesia, symbolism thing embedded in it, along with the story of what the fuck is the mob and who can handle justice in this world.
Okay. So there's that. So I found the article. It says it's Rolling Stone, QAnon conspiracy believing mob boss killer's confession. to police ruled admissible. So Anthony Camello, he believed the mob boss was part of the deep state, and he wanted to eliminate him to help President Trump.
What a guy.
So, okay, it's so it's like one, sort of fringe radical guy. They claim he was radicalized by QAnon. But it's one guy, and it's not like he's not killing like politicians or anything like that. I mean, he killed a mob boss.
It's kind of an amazing story. How do you kill a mob boss? Like, you right?
Like with a gun, I guess, right?
Yeah, but usually they have sufficient security, one would think. I don't know. I wasn't there, but I'm telling you that story is funky to the hilt. And if you compare the Richard Ramirez story and pictures, it's pretty astounding.
I don't know about the Richard Ramirez connection. I mean,
you can look at the pictures. Because with the QAnon, with QAnon you got this, and with Richard Ramirez you got this, and they staged.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine they weren't the only ones to write things on their hands, but
okay, yes, you're right. You're probably right.
But nonetheless, it's an interesting story. So you're saying that's one of the reasons why they're regarded as dangerous. Yeah. And is there another one? Can we connect the whole like Pizzagate guy with the?
That's like the mainstream media definitely has done that, and that's like connecting Saddam Hussein to Iraq, to the 9/11 attacks. There's nothing. Q's first drop didn't come until way after Pizzagate. Pizzagate unfolded as the Podesta emails came out in late 2016. QAnon's first drop is October 27 or 28, 2017. But there is a definite uniform. QAnon is dangerous because of the Pizzagate shooter, which was a staged shooter, and brings up the question of the basement.
Well, how do you know it was staged?
I'm just going to assert some things, and it's easy to find that guy's name on the IMDb database. It's easy to understand the way that false flags are staged and how they're used. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. So some things I'm just going to assert as I know this.
You're welcome to, but I'm going to ask how you know that.
Mm-hmm. I'll have different explanations for different things.
Because it seems like the thing about Q is there's a lot of like leaps of faith, because Q doesn't actually say a whole lot,
or it's very a lot of what he says is cryptic.
Yeah, it's
like riddles. Document or more. 4,000 drops is.
It's like the Riddler in Batman. He's like he leaves these riddles, and they're all just standing around like, what is this? What the hell does this mean?
Again, if you're accounting for the riddles, that's maybe part of it. But there's some stuff that's very straightforward.
Yeah, it's a mix. I mean, and a lot of the code is consistent. It's got an internal consistency. So, there's people that have figured out that what certain abbreviations mean, or and some of it's like military.
So there's some consistency.
Yeah, there's some of it's even like used in the military and stuff like that. As far
so they use some military lingo. Mm-hmm. I understand that.
Interesting. I want to point out the. We generally think that where there's brackets, that Q is indicating it's usually called a kill box, and people who have been put in those brackets have become media centralized, and things have happened around key figures. For example, Rod Rosenstein. But another interesting thing a buddy of mine pointed out at some point is that in technical. What's it called? The remote viewing program, the official psychic spy program. Their documents say that that code, put something in those bracket marks, you're indicating targets. So Killbox maybe has a different ring than let's put attention which is what psychic and remote viewing is about. Radical attention focuses.
So is remote viewing that this is not an official part of the Q narrative, and this is not necessarily even like mainstream Q community stuff. This is your personal theory, or
I'm telling you, I saw the documents of the remote viewing thing, and that what's commonly interpreted as killbox has this particular definition within the remote viewing, the formal training of how remote viewing stuff is documented.
With brackets.
Yeah, same brackets.
Okay. Brackets, people use brackets for all kinds of things.
Exactly.
Okay.
So Q's, there is a lot that is presented as a riddle. I would say that anything that even looks, oh, I got it, I understood what this Q drop said, is probably stacked deep with multiple layers of code of one sort or another. And we probably are not it may take decades to decode this, or at some point we'll have an official statement how this was produced.
The other reason I think that Q itself has mentioned the reason it uses code like that is to bypass or to defeat sniffers.
Meaning what?
Sniffers are programs that are used to find things on the internet, basically. I mean, they're algorithms that are used by the NSA or by the government to...
Well, Q's not going to publish anything that's not going to be... As soon as Q drops, there's hundreds of millions of eyes on that. It's the biggest tracked phenomenon.
Yeah, what would these sniffers do exactly with...
Well, if they'll look for certain keywords, and then they'll
there's memes that just came out that as soon as they were put up, they were flagged by Facebook, so just covered, and that was memes. And Q right away drops, "Hey, try this," and showed people how to just put a Photoshop layer type thing and evade the Facebook algorithm. One thing along those lines, hyper important, if Q is government insider, and almost certainly, like there's no other way to explain it, I don't believe, there's the question of what can they say legally, and also anybody else in the government reading that has specific things that they're allowed to look at online, not allowed to look at online, discuss. Q presents everything in such a way that when they say, how did you leak classified intelligence? Q did not leak classified intelligence. Q asked questions, Q left trails that might be decoded, and then, oh shit, suddenly the public's talking about classified stuff.
And that's what he does with the riddles, is he gets people kind of looking in that direction.
So look every direction.
So Jason, you're suggesting that it's cover, they don't want to break the law.
Well, that is certainly a huge part of it. They can't break the law.
I mean, that's the premise of the letter Q in the first place, right? They have some kind of government clearance.
Q level clearance is issued by the Department of Energy. If you look up what the known publicly listed top secret clearance levels are, Q is the highest level, and it's authorized by the agency that runs Lawrence Livermore Lab, Brookhaven Lab, Los Alamos, the Jet Propulsion Lab, all the secret bases of advanced propulsion and sciences with the overlap with the military. And it's out of that these, like Stranger Things was based on the Montauk Project story. And that, when they made Hawkins National Laboratory, that's, it's got Department of Energy signs on it. And if you track what the Department of Energy has done while Q has been posting, you'll see radical things. For example, they just took over California's power and electric grid supervision. Like Richard Grinnell came out and made one tweet And it's just like, wait, what? Like PG&E got busted for manslaughter of 80 people from last year's fires, 88 or more. The largest corporate accountability conviction in corporate history. And quietly, the Department of Energy just announces they were taking over supervision of California, their energy grid, while Israel's sending in firefighters and they're disclosing direct energy weapons, and we're sending the first Space Force mission to Israel. You've got like these moving parts and amazing stage setup. I'll just say that.
Gotcha. Okay, but just back up a second. So
yeah,
Q.
Let's back up. What did I say?
You're saying Q is a security clearance level
of the highest level that the public. What we would think would be that if there's anything beyond Q level clearance, it's referring to.
If there's an R, we don't know.
Right. That like. There's probably no documents. That's the story with Montauk. They say this project happened and not a fucking piece of paper was left. You know.
Okay.
There's probably programs running.
It might not have happened.
It might not have, but
it could just be a story from a crazy guy. But
Q level clearance refers to accessing things that would probably still have a paper trail. Perhaps there's something beyond that.
Okay, so but you're basically suggesting that Q has the security clearance of Q and maybe speaking in code in order to not break the law.
Perhaps not to not break the law. Also, perhaps.
But I kind of feel like the government, where they would, even if it's in code, they would still be pissed and be like, "Look, clearly when you said this, you were referring to this." I mean, just the fact that it's in code, the government can't be like, "Oh, it's in code. There's nothing we can do." You know.
Well, I think the overall belief is it's part of a major D-class operation, and along the way is being
akin
very formal.
to what's that?
We're
guy?
already
Snowden.
No.
Snowden's
Snowden's
like a CIA asset or something like that.
Aside from that, it's lame ass disclosure. Didn't help anybody in any way. Didn't tell the people the truth about surveillance in any significant or important way. Was couched and handled by mainstream media to use the word metadata, covering up the story with the up the real story with the idea of metadata. And what Q is offering in terms of a disclosure is not, oh, your metadata is getting collected. It's they've been hiding cures for every disease that you've been plagued with in the past 100 years. Perhaps I'm taking a stretch. They've held free energy technologies from the public.
Okay.
They have withheld the sciences and arts of mind control and MK Ultra.
Okay, that's what you think, but we kind of need to stay like on sort of, pure.
And you see the different levels of types of disclosure. What Snowden brought and John Oliver is like, oh, they're metadata and they're dick pics, as compared to we have been. There's been a cabal running things to the degree that you have been harvested as depicted in the Matrix.
Okay.
Those are different types of disclosure.
So I got a thing plugged into my brain, or
something's funny happening in the background where your
yes, my hair. I know. It's the aliens in the pyramids.
It's pixelization. Yeah.
But okay, let's not talk about the Matrix. Q
actually references it directly, at least.
So okay, Bryan. So
yeah.
where are we here? Okay, so we know. So Q is supposedly somebody with government clearance.
Yes. So from my understanding, yes, someone or a group of people close to the president with Q clearance. That's how this started.
Okay.
And
so Q. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and so, other than that, we don't know. We don't know anything.
Okay, that's it. But then But then Q does stuff. Q talks about stuff. What does it seem like Q's agenda is?
It seems to me that his agenda is to get to dispense information to the public that would otherwise not be available. And to kind of prepare the public, I think, for a massive, massive disruption.
Okay, they call that the Great Awakening or something.
Yes, I think that's what they call it. I can't remember. Jason would know.
Well, the phrase "Great Awakening" is a big part of Q's drops and the culture around it. Mm-hmm. But I don't think the Great Awakening itself is supposed to be necessarily disrupting. I think that gets into the question of what awakening means.
Well, what I mean by disrupting is just that, the idea is that there is this basically kind of a civil war happening within the government, behind the scenes, below the level that we would be aware of on the surface. But you basically have forces within the government, the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, the military, there's one group that is sort of aligned with the establishment government. And this is not just in the US, but this is like global, right? So global. We're not just talking about there's the establishment government in the US, but they're also aligned with all the establishment governments all around the world. And corporations and so on. Yeah, right. Yeah. And then there are there's the group that's fighting that's trying to basically free us from that. And the story, from what I gather, is that this war started in 2017 in Saudi Arabia. With the overthrow of basically the Saudi royal family had this like bloodbath coup kind of thing going on.
Yeah,
right. And the way that lined up with the prior weeks of Q dropping on 4chan, that is just going to be one of the best American stories for galactic history's sake. The setup to all of that, what Q endured as a poster on 4chan, right? Like it was just like some random thing posting like all this crazy, Huma Abedin and Podesta, Clinton's going to get arrested. You're going to see all this. It just got like, dude, shut the fuck up. Like there had been all these amazing whistleblowers coming out through 4chan, right. Like FBI Anon, and then Q posts all this wacky stuff and gets shit kicked. And then all of a sudden, watch what happens in Saudi Arabia and mentions Kushner, and then Saudi Arabia falls, and it's like a mirror image of everything Q had dropped up to that point. And so things like went deep as soon as the coup in Saudi Arabia kicked off. That's
right.
It's an important part of the history of this story.
Okay, so that kicked off the Holy War or whatever, and
well, I would want to qualify that because many people are tracing the roots of Q back
further.
Decades.
Yeah, right. You trace it back to like the Stone Age, right?
Well, ultimately, and before, back to where they were making that fancy stuff in your pyramids.
Yeah.
But I think more especially, the murder of JFK is crucial. The setup of the NSA around 9/11 and people like William Binney, who were William Binney is the real NSA whistleblower. Snowden, in a sense, was set up to stymie Bill Binney's whistleblowing. But there were elements within the agencies who could have been planning for decades to unfold this. Another possibility is, let people speculate.
I can hear you, but So it could have been going on for decades, but it could have just been
Right.
something that kicked off a few years ago.
Yes.
Right. There's no way to know that. I mean, and that's why I just kind of say, okay, it started in 2017 in October.
Let's start
as far as we know, and if more information comes out later that says
EQ and
differently, then-
AQ.
Perfect.
right?
It's yeah.
But then going forward from that, so that happened in Saudi Arabia, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but is the sort of the trust in the plan part is that the next domino to fall is supposed to be the U.S., then Europe, then Asia. Do I have that order correctly?
Is that the plan?
I don't have it all memorized. There are drops that sort of look like first you're going to see this, then you're going to see this, and you're going to see this. I would say we've seen many, many, many dominoes falling. Way too many, and like all sorts of like big ones and then little ones and peripheral streams and stuff. And for example, like the yellow vest thing is coming to mind. And what did Q have to do with, what were the Q drops like around the time it was 11/11/18 that there was an anomalous seismic event on the Earth that for 30 minutes, every Richter scale on Earth was pulsing with these 17-second waves, right? Q equals 17. 17-second waves were spiking every Richter scale geological measuring device on Earth for a half hour.
On November 11th?
No, 11/11. Yeah.
You're talking about November 11th, 2018.
Yeah.
It occurred about 15 miles off the coast of, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's
Australia or something.
No, it's a region of France. Mayotte.
I don't remember them.
Oh, it's in the Indian Ocean, but it's an overseas department and region of France in the Indian Ocean.
That's all news to me. The original stories were that there was an anomalous seismic event, pulsing 17-second waves, monochrome waves for about 30 minutes. Q's drops about 11/11 before that, talking about a shot rang out around the shot heard around the world, right? Like the Revolutionary War slogan. That date and that phrase got linked together. And if you look at Q's drops around that time, you see images from Antarctica, the South Pole. Yeah. You see images from the Yellow Vest movement kicked off the next week, about a week later. And Q's drops around that time refer to the big bold letters, think waves. And as soon as I saw that, I went, oh, brain waves. They're running the heart machinery through the South Pole of the planet. And they're showing people how mass social engineering through electronic mechanisms is done on this planet.
Okay.
So that's my interpretation. But if you look, I'm referring to very specific Q drops and a history of like major events.
But this is not mainstream Q theory.
Well,
I mean, when I see much.
You'd have to look like who was talking about that at that time. I remember being in conversations about it in Facebook chats, but there's lots of folks out there attempting to decode the material.
Yeah, but you're suggesting that there is a level of Earth, like weather control, earthquake control.
I am, but first of all, I brought all that up to try to bring scope to what Bryan was saying, that there was first there was this Saudi event, and then we're going to see these other dominoes. And I tried to say, well, there are so many things that have literally been happening daily, and based on the scope of what you're paying attention to, was something like the Yellow Vest movement, or was the North Korean peace deal, or what we're seeing in Israel now, even though Q said like first you're going to see, I don't know, you're going to see Saudi Arabia and then Asia. I don't know what the order was, but that there was some like systematic plan like that. I'm saying we've been seeing dominoes in every dimension, and they're toppling all day long, every day. It's really like, how much can we pay attention to?
Yeah,
and make sense of.
Right, but it seems like you can basically connect almost every event back to the QAnon narrative, which you do.
I do. And I suggest that people take that seriously, that QAnon is the only story that we have seen since 2017. Since Trump had that
grand theory of everything happening, unified theory of everything.
Well, if we're going to dismantle the matrix, if we're going to bring awareness to the facts of a globally organized electromagnetic genetic harvesting matrix, how are you going to do that?
Okay.
If the whole planet, how would an operation like that go on? Wouldn't it have to use that matrix?
I mean, but is that matrix?
Isn't that where we are?
the electromagnetic harvesting matrix. So this is your theory, correct?
Yes. There's people who would agree with me, and there's people
because I don't want people.
What this guy's talking about.
Yeah, I don't want people watching this to be like to walk away from this thinking that this is what Q is community. So.
No, I can't. I feel a little bad about that.
Yeah, we got to focus on like Orthodox Q here.
I can't do that.
Orthodox Q Church.
There's a lot of people in the Q community that I have a lot of respect for, just like a patriot kind of love. And I think the way that I talk about things and think about things might alienate a lot of those people. So I have a little bit of a guilty conscience.
Yeah.
In terms of being like far fringe within this thing that's
already
invites, yeah, and in which encourages
the fringe of the fringe, the fringiest.
And that's not uncommon. I think that the at this point we can see a homogenous type of Q account on Facebook or
Can we talk about what like a Q normie? Okay, what does a Q normie believe? There's just so Bryan was talking about how there's this plan to there's the civil war going on between the good guys and the bad guys, and the plan is for the good guys to liberate us from the bad guys. Now, who and what are the bad guys?
So from my understanding, the bad guys are basically the established powers of all of major nations of the world, which include the
establishment.
The establishment, yeah. I mean, that's one way to put it. But basically, you're talking about, government figures, big corporate CEOs and leaders and so on and so forth. Big banks, that kind of stuff.
So so we're talking about the deep state, right?
Right. And media too. Media plays a huge role in that.
Yeah, so there's a big connection. There's the globalists, the deep state, the government, the corporations, the media, the big sort of umbrella kind of
everybody who has an interest in keeping the established order going for their own benefit.
One of the clearer things that Q laid out early on was a pyramid schematic where the House of Saud, the Rothschild family, and Soros. But Q, when I think the first times these were mentioned, said Soros replaced somebody, something like that, or suggested something along those lines. And I'll say that Soros used to be Rockefeller. Soros basically took over the job that the Rockefellers had in the cabal. And in those three, Q showed that the House of Saud has marked it with like $3 bills, I think,
see.
or three pluses, and then 2 pluses for the Rothschild, and then 1 plus for Soros. And
yeah, I see that. House of Saud, what do you call it?
Rothschild.
Rothschild or Rothschild means red shield. It's the German banking.
Yeah, Rothschild.
Excuse me, not German, European banking.
Soros. Got it. 3 plus signs.
I want to make a point about this. If you look at those three, that organization, if you think about how your foot has 3 arches, Q's always talking about the keystones. So in the human foot, you've got 3 arches and 3 keystones. The House of Saud, if you look at what Saudi empires basically supply, is human trafficking and material oil. They are literally in charge of like the substances themselves. And they traffic that stuff. They sell it, they deal it, that's their business. You look at what the Rothschilds are involved in. They're involved in actual magic ritual. They're the ones running the satanic Illuminati. The Rothschilds are almost certainly the top or the top positioned head of the satanic cabal. They are basically making magic. So their bank system is attributed to the Rothschilds, not to the Rockefellers and not to the Saudis, or not to Soros. It's Rothschild design, and it's designed on magic and myth. And then you have the social engineering brigade, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, all the Rockefeller philanthropies, fake philanthropies, the establishment of things like the medical and many like NPR type, like we're sponsored by this organization. They're all Rockefeller linked, and then like Soros took it over, literally starting the European Council on Foreign Relations as he took over the job that used to be Rockefeller's. That's me adding in my, I'm putting those two together. But if you look and think in terms of a cabal pyramid running things along those lines, a supply chain, and that's be the biggest medial arch of the foot, the magic, myth, and the satanic ritual to ring the gong. You've got the outer edge of the foot, and then you got the arch that points the nose. Which way is the foot going? And that's the social engineering, Rockefeller or Soros. So I think that's a good way to get a grip of like what is whatever this cabal is. How have they been structured? What have they been doing? And you can see the whole operation in that little schematic.
So we've got the House of Saud is providing what? Human trafficking,
oil supply, materials.
And materials, oil. Rothschild or Rothschild.
Banking and mythos magic. And satanic rituals. They are running they're the ones in charge of the rituals.
The satanic rituals. Okay, they're providing the rituals. And then the third piece would be
running magic.
So they're the magic masters. And then the Soros would be
social engineering, point the nose of the dog. Move the society. Get the agendas to happen. Social engineering.
Okay, so Soros is
but public face organized social engineering, right? Like the Rothschilds and the Saudis are definitely doing social engineering.
So this seems
but they're not the ones with the the NPR funding foundations.
Okay. So but this does seem like mainstream Q stuff that we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I think most people would agree.
He said who are the puppet masters? House of Saud, Rothschild, Soros. Those 3. Then he talks about Eye of Providence, bloodlines, Satan. Who worships Satan? Epstein Island. And then Vladimir Putin, the New World Order, worships Satan. Okay.
That's a famous sort of like the article that got passed around, maybe like really, really questionable stuff, but it's an alleged quote from Vladimir Putin.
Okay, but so we have November. So this was November 11th, 2017. This is where he sort of laid out the pillars of the narrative in terms of who the puppet masters are.
Yeah.
Just clarifying, I think everybody knew those groups were involved, but I think it probably focused a lot of conspiracy-minded...
So, he was sort of explicitly weaving those together.
And showing a basic type of organization. Yeah. Things really clicked into place as I just contemplated, why those three? And it was actually while I was looking at foot anatomy that it really made sense to me.
Okay.
One thing we haven't mentioned is that what is the autist phenomena? Who were these warriors on 4chan in this phenomena of researchers?
The autists?
It's Q even mentioned, be the autists we know you are.
Oh, Lord. Are you an autist?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I have skills that are associated with that. How do you know that? How did you do that type of research? How did you connect this to that? I think the phenomena with autism as a whole spectrum is that there's all sorts of strange gifts showing up. And then the people who are showing up on the Chan boards that were the original researchers in the capacities of these people are otherworldly. They're very strange. It's how, people who are willing to sit around and watch plane flight patterns for, 18 hours on end kind of thing. And
yeah, that's weird. Okay, so you might be autistic. We don't know.
Well,
you're definitely neuroatypical.
Okay, so there's the diagnosing of that, but then there's the question of other epistemologic. What happens when your attention starts doing strange things? And when you honor hunches, right? I'm going I thought about Q, and then because I have a background with healing art stuff, I was contemplating the foot anatomy, and that made bing, 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 understanding unlock for me. Okay. I haven't seen other people talking about the shape of the foot and the keystone theory. Or the meaning of the word keystone.
Yeah, so that's your thing,
right?
That's not
but
a
lot of Q, a lot.
I don't want you to put your foot in your mouth here.
I can. We can transition into yoga class before long. It might help everybody. But the way the Q has happened is not conventional. You have all sorts of people who are happy to say, why do I know this? I followed a hunch and I ended up in this rabbit hole, and then I found this.
Right.
And then
that's kind of the weird. So yeah, so we're sort of tapping into the fact that nobody knows what the fuck's going on. There's a lot of stuff up for interpretation.
Yeah.
Everybody's just, it's like spaghetti theories.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the problem, is the way I see it, is that because a lot of these drops are really, really vague, and they have a lot of symbolism and a lot of different ways you could interpret that information. You get a lot of people who take that and start going off in different directions. But which is why that's why I like to kind of keep it at a 10-foot distance. And one of the guys I follow is this guy, Praying Medic. I mean, you probably know him, right?
Praying Medic.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. PrayingMedic.com. He's probably the most level-headed, vanilla, these are the facts, Jack Q guy out there. I mean, he's very, very, he's very, very on the level. So I follow him just because one, his analysis is really detailed, and he's been following it since the beginning. He's written books on it. That's basically his life now. But he's very, he just does a really good job of not putting his own shit into it. You know what I mean?
And I don't know if he still does. I haven't watched him for maybe I was following him very closely in the very beginning. He would often tell us his dreams. He's a professional medic.
Mm-hmm.
He works as a healer. He, as a Christian healer as well as a paramedic EMT. And then he has prophetic dreams, and he was not shy to report that and say this may have something to do with Q, but he is impeccable in terms of keeping this is what separate, Q dropped, and being like a, even as I start to talk, but Praying Medic's entire demeanor is level-headed and even cautious, which is, there's nobody cautious like in the Q.
Clean.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's like the king of the Q normies.
I would say
there's
so.
nothing like that in Q.
But I mean, as far as like he's probably the most.
He's the man with one eye in the land of the blind, right?
I don't know.
Where does this go?
What is that?
I mean, the whole thing with Q is that you're supposed to look at it and kind of decode it yourself. Like that's the whole idea of it.
Yeah.
And you're trying, and that's why, like Jason was saying before, you get all these guys on 4chan doing their own research and spending 18 hours looking at flight patterns and all this kind of stuff. And that's the whole purpose. That's what this Q character wants people to do. And so the reason I'm talking about Praying Medic is because he's kind of the guy that just, if you're not one of those aspie guys that's doing that stuff, and you just kind of want to know what the hell is going on with this Q thing, that's who I'd recommend listening to, because he's just going to kind of break it down for you.
I would also mention In Pursuit of Truth is he's very clean. He's very responsible in terms of just reporting, like this is what Q said and like this is some news. And his demeanors, he makes videos that are actually like funny, really mixed up with like cute shit that makes you giggle along the way. And I think those are the two. They're accessible as commentators.
What was it called?
The other guy's name is iPot, In Pursuit of Truth. IPOT. And I'm not sure if he's still doing Q broadcasts. He did for a couple years. But he'll sometimes make videos about specific topics. Like I think I saw one recently on the Weathermen, the old Students for the Democratic Society and the Weathermen groups, and how those are related through Obama administration to current Soros operations.
Okay. So I want to point something out. You've pointed out a lot of things. So why does Q want people to like looking at flight patterns and stuff?
Yeah. That's what I want to talk about.
Jumping through all these hoops.
What is human attention? What is human attention? What is human perception? What is the opinion game of routing? Look over here, look over here. What happens with the electromagnetics, with the weather, with the genetics, with entrainment in neighborhoods?
When humans look at something happens.
What happens?
Energy goes
what
there.
What happens?
Energy goes there. That's what you're saying?
I'm asking questions. That's part of it. Energy goes there. But I'm saying that if you want to understand what Q is, think along those kind of lines.
I don't know.
What is it? How do you manipulate a globe's attention in an intelligent way as compared to what we're used to?
Okay, I don't know that Q is necessarily manipulating attention in an intelligent way.
Okay, how do you expand people's thinking and move attention, make attention flexible, move it omnidirectional?
Psychedelic drugs, maybe? Sounds like.
Are there other ways to use that? Are there other ways to get groups of people to mobilize their consciousness and attention, their understanding, what they're explaining to themselves and to their friends, what they're dreaming about?
I think.
Well, what do you think, Bryan?
I think what it is it's a lot more it's a lot more engaging, or a lot more what's the right word I'm looking for? I can't think of it right now, but basically, like, if you're left a trail of crumbs, right? Rather than spoon-fed information, if you're left a trail of crumbs, it's much more engaging and exciting, and to sort of discover that path on your own. And so
you get to participate.
You get to participate in the uncovering of this phenomenon, right? And
so
you become what's called a digital warrior. That's what they call.
Yeah. So there's a bit of a game that there's a big global game that you get to play. You get to participate in.
Mm-hmm.
Bryan.
Yeah.
Bryan, have you read the author Idris Shah by any chance? The Sufi author?
I haven't.
No. And Marshall, have you read his books? Have you read the?
I've read some Idris Shah, and I understand you're going to attempt to connect Q to some sort of deep spiritual Sufi wisdom. And
that the Sufis have.
A bit of a stretch.
Idris Shah is able to describe a very particular approach to what he would call like a teaching operation, and he uses the word scatter, and he describes like long range, like he doesn't use the word breadcrumbs, but like these moving details, whether through story or through other teaching, school, global universe devices, the spiritual journey, that the mind is working with like lock and key mechanisms, and that whole programs, whole learning courses are delivered by masters in very systematic and symbol-coded ways that on the surface may just look like there's a commercial over here, you hear you see a sign over here, somebody says something over here, and 20 years later all the things lock and click into place.
You're suggesting Q now is a spiritual Sufi master.
No, I'm saying that the Sufis have a very explicit way of describing their teaching operations. And if you compare what Idris Shah describes as Sufi teaching operations and compare that to what QAnon has done, you will see a very, very
maybe
it makes a lot of sense out of why would something be organized as a drop here, a drop here, a drop here,
treasure
a drop
hunt.
Here. It only looks like a treasure
scavenger hunt.
That's how you're seeing it. There's other ways to see it where there's no scavenger hunt. There's all sorts of dimensions to look at this phenomena from. And if you're looking at it from the point of view of what is it doing to the people reading it, what are the people reading it doing, you're going to see a certain territory, and you might describe it as a scavenger hunt.
They're going on a scavenger hunt. They're looking for, trying to figure out what the fuck he's talking about.
So as that's going on, I'm suggesting there's other layers to look. There's other layers to observe the people doing that work. And if you look at QAnon in terms of a strategized teaching operation and compare it to what Idris Shah...
Okay, it's a strategized teaching operation. I don't necessarily believe that they're
social engineering
inspired by the Sufis.
May or may not. Maybe it's just a strategy.
I think that's just a connection.
Maybe they rediscovered the wheel.
Your background in studying spirituality, but you're basically saying
education. In that
you're
case.
saying it's an education method.
Yes, and maybe part of something much greater
in order to teach them something. But if we look at the results, what exactly are people learning? It's like they're not really learning the lessons. Like I could tell you what the Sufis want you to learn. Okay. I mean, it's pretty clear. It's all been written down. It's like, but
well, what do they want people to learn?
There's no real clarity. There's no real like unified message or teaching that's emerging. So at the very least, we could say that Q is not a very good teacher.
Well,
yeah,
okay,
I don't know if I buy the teaching argument per se. I think it's more of just trying to disseminate information about something that's happening in our world. I mean, I don't necessarily. I mean, maybe teaching was one way to say that, but basically, it's hey, look at what's happening, and here are some directions that I'm going to point you, and just go follow down that rabbit hole yourself, and go figure it out.
And let me swap things up for a second. Let me replace where I just used the phrase teaching operation over and over again. Take that, swap it out, and put in the word social engineering. Take that, swap it out, put in the word
He was trying to social engineer people for good.
Well, good, bad, or otherwise.
Good or evil.
Okay, so I'm trying to make a flexibility around these words. PSYOP, mind control, cult, teaching operation, social engineering. Okay. I'm saying there's one phenomena going on, and we can use all these words. What the hell is it really? What is
exactly? Nobody knows, right? So
well, no. There are places you can go look. It's this document. Here is this text download. It has done all these things, and it's still moving.
What document?
Q's drops. Everything dropped with that trip code and the stuff aggregated before.
Okay, so where can we find those?
QMap? QMap is down. QMap
is down because the guy that runs it was exposed, correct?
Yeah.
There are other places. I can read them off to you. QAnon.pub, QAGG.news, QPosts.online.
Okay, but
there is 8kun also. There is the actual 8kun board. Right. You can go to 8kun and good luck. God bless you. Careful.
Why? Why do you say that?
They are on those boards. It is truly anonymous to the degree that's possible. In other words, you don't need an account to post.
Okay.
Because of that, anybody can, stuff can get dropped on those boards by whoever. Many people seem to be there just to muddy the streams, and I have seen gore on there. I've seen horrible things that are later censored and pulled out. But in the middle of, here's these people discussing a complicated thread or discussing metaphysics.
There's probably child porn on there.
I've bumped into really gross stuff.
Okay.
And
why would Q post in a cesspool like that?
Because it is
it's
anonymous.
Like pulling up to
anybody can go because it's anonymous.
Yeah, but Q can anonymize it.
Free.
You can anonymize it elsewhere. Doesn't need. It's like pulling up.
I don't think to that degree, though, Marshall. No. I don't think you can really. I mean, you'd have to have someone. Basically, you'd have to have someone create a whole nother board that's anonymous and public, and then the same thing would happen because all that shit would just follow.
But Q is not anonymous. I mean,
excuse me. Who is Q then? I know we all think Q.
Well, who's the guy that runs 8? Who's the guy that runs 8?
Q plus is Donald J. Trump. Jim Watkins currently owns 8.
Okay, so Jim Watkins knows Q.
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Why couldn't Jim Watkins create like a proprietary platform for Q?
Well, there is a board devoted to Q. The 8kun and 4chan and 8chan were all different boards are set up there. Maybe
I don't know, man.
Yes,
I mean,
that's how it is.
Q is basically pulling up to like a satanic, barbecue where children are being molested, and he's like, "Look, here's my jobs. This is the perfect platform for me."
Something like that, Marshall. Something just like that.
I mean, yeah, right? I mean,
I don't even know because I've never actually seen Q's posts on 8kun. I've always gone to the aggregator, so I have no idea what 8kun's like, but from my understanding, the idea is that Q is posting to these anonymous public boards, and
how do we know?
They're all like
that's
that.
Q?
by a trip code. The identity of a given poster can be confirmed by themselves and managed by the mechanisms of the board, of the website. So there's a consistency of trip code, and Q proving itself at different times became part of a learning experience for many people. So the grittiness of those boards, one thing to say about it is that once a batch has been, like they call the bread batches, once they're aggregated and archived, all the shit is cleaned up. But often there's still a lot of like racist stuff and just gross shit and irrelevant shit.
It's a cesspool, yeah.
It's a cesspool, and it's almost certainly like overrun by people trying to make it as swampy as possible. Whether that's Mossad or the Chinese Communist Party or, whoever it is, or DNC. There's people who want to make that place hard to get to, So the site is, it's the Wild West type thing. So the aggregate sites are way more helpful. The issue with
if I was trying to save the world from pedophiles, I wouldn't post.
What would you do?
I wouldn't post
what would
on
you
platform
do, Marshall?
Overrun by pedophiles.
Oh yeah? How would you do it, Marshall?
Why can't
What's
Q,
your great plan?
Hold on. Why can't Q clean up? Why can't Q clean his own room?
Maybe Q is cleaning his own room. I think we have to wait to see.
Trust the plan.
Trust the plan. That gets us to something actually I want to talk.
Go do it. Do it.
So since we are an integral podcast.
Exactly. Yes. I've been waiting for this part.
Yeah, let's talk about Q from that perspective. This does seem to me like, and there's nothing wrong with this, but it does seem to me to be sort of an amber level fantasy or
mythic.
Mythos. Fantasy's a harsh word. I would say mythos. And it could be entirely true. Like it could really be some these Q level government guys in league with the president, and all of that could all be true, but the flavor that you get from the Q posts is definitely they're definitely going at an amber level audience.
Can I?
So what are the features?
I ask a question about that?
Yeah, sure.
When I'm describing like a view of a whether it's a global teaching operation or a view where like there's an electromagnetic and genetic manipulation of the public being disclosed to the public,
mm-hmm.
If I represent it in that way, does it still register for you as like, this is amber, like...
No, but I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about what Q drops. I'm just talking about what Q drops.
Right, so Q... So you're saying, Bryan, that Q is sort of intentionally...
I think he's intentionally focusing his message on a certain demographic. I think that's intentional.
What if I said it this way? Part of the Q operation is going to activate demographics and people of different levels of consciousness simultaneously. So people operating in this level are going to see this message. People operating in this level are going to have access to this message. Higher and higher, all dimensions, all extensions.
Sure, that would be awesome.
Maybe it's
but let's. I'm gonna interrupt here.
Okay, go.
If you're operating, Bryan, from let's say Orange, okay, is this gonna be? Are you gonna find Q like all that gratifying or interesting, or it's like give me? I kind of tap into that Orange mindset, and I'm just like, give me some straight data, man. Like, give me something real. Give me something concrete.
I could see it from like a puzzle solving kind of,
Okay.
I don't know. I could see it from that aspect. I kind of see what Jason's saying, but I'm just talking about, I'm really just talking about the message. The message is very, very heavily coded in patriotism and nationalism and Although he does go into a sort of international sort, and a lot of his followers are I'd say a good proportion of his followers aren't even American. I mean they're from all over the world. But
what about a message like this?
It speaks to the sort of universality of the sort of the mythic architecture. Would you agree with that?
I would, yes.
What is one of the main messages
most
that
accessible
came out with Q?
to? It sort of caters to the lowest common denominator, so to speak, which is people at the mythic level.
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Did you just say Q caters to people of the lowest common denominator?
Yeah.
How do you see that, and what are you justifying that by?
Why are you getting so defensive about it? I mean,
I cannot even wrap my head around what you just said. Most people look at Q and say this is not even understandable.
Quiet. You asked me a question.
Doesn't the lowest common denominator refer to people everybody would understand?
You asked me a question. Okay. So what I'm saying is that is the sort of lowest common denominator in terms of what Q is targeting is people at the mythic level.
I hope everybody watching this knows how little of Q you've actually read. This doesn't. What you're saying does not make sense. Wait,
Jason, just let him finish. What I think he's saying is that when you know what lowest common denominator means, it doesn't mean that that's his only audience. That just means that at the lowest point, at sort of the lowest level, that's what he's aiming at.
Oh, is that what you're saying, Marshall? Are you saying like Q is accounting for taking care of the lowest common denominator will have something to read here?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying like that's what the whole thing's geared to that. And I'm going like that doesn't make any sense.
Well, you kind of have. I mean, all sort of politicians have to do this.
Right. And certainly all social engineering operations would have.
Right. I mean, what you would say Amber is the most common stage across the world.
I would agree with that.
And so any kind of mass movement of any kind has to target this level.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily, I think.
Well, so cue off the bat, the phrase expand your thinking and follow the rabbit hole. Follow the white rabbit. Many types of provoking, open-ended, question everything sort of ideas were heavily, and they're just like stacked, within different drops. Expand your thinking. What does that even mean?
Well, maybe he is kind of meme stacking. Maybe he's got certain messaging that's directed at one level. He's got other messaging that's directed at another level, and so on.
We have electromagnetic devices that can do things like that with people's minds. I wonder what.
I don't.
I've tried to make them.
Maybe my microphone does that. I don't know.
Maybe it does. These are the sorts of questions that I think are hyper pertinent. And
it is hyper pertinent.
Set the context for where did Q show up. What planet did Q show up on? In what era?
Okay. So
those aren't partisan issues.
So there is like a strong mythic center of gravity, and maybe just because that's most people's center of gravity, and so Q knows its audience.
I think that has a lot to do with. I think that has a lot to do with the messaging, particularly in the U.S. Or that's because Q is kind of targeted at obviously U.S. audiences. I do think it's really interesting though that he has a following that is global, and so I think that's a very fascinating aspect of Q.
It's an exciting story of. Good versus evil, but it's real, right? It's real. It's reality, and so
it sure is.
Could be.
It's like I was telling Jason, it's like Q is role playing as the Avengers, right? We're like saving the world from the bad guys, and it's a kind of mythic architecture that's deeply embedded in all of our psyches, and so. Of course. And with Trump is sort of how would you describe Trump's role?
Q plus is what we call him, because that's one of the most interesting things, is that Trump is Trump Q plus. I say absolutely.
Okay, what's Q plus?
There's, I don't know how many, maybe two or three dozen drops are signed out of over 4,000. Right? There's maybe 4,600 drops. Maybe 20, 30 or so are signed Q plus. Q plus is our president.
That's what you think. And that's also a
that
comment.
is very common.
That's a theory.
Very few people would almost everybody who's read Q would probably agree with that.
Well, because remember the idea that
I don't know anybody who wouldn't.
The idea is that Q is not one person. The idea is that Q is a group of people that's close to the president, and so the theory makes sense. I mean, if you're going to have a signifier that identifies the president, I don't makes sense, I guess.
I don't recall the exact details, but there were things that confirmed that based on like call signs that Air Force One was choosing, and there were some weird confirmations that, oh my God, Trump is definitely Q plus, and I'm sorry I can't remember the details at the moment.
Let's talk about Q proofs. That kind of leads us into that.
This is one of those. Like, whoa, Trump's call sign proves something.
Mm-hmm. They do a lot of things with time. Like
timestamps.
Timestamps, yeah. They do a lot of things with timestamps that I found kind of interesting.
There are people who are spending their life decoding that sort of thing now and using all sorts of Kabbalistic and gematria and very interesting methods to pull data, like, code breaking style, that people are finding all sorts of stuff, and the timestamps are a key.
Well, I'm just talking about the mundane stuff, like Q makes a post at such and such a time, and then at the same time, Trump is making a tweet that references, and it's like that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that is probably, for me, that's probably a little more compelling than like some guy in his basement doing Kabbalic research on whatever. I mean, same party. There's things going on in every room. Right.
Okay, but I'm just like thinking about the sort of the technical, how to pull that off technically. To that kind of coordination is really, really hard to pull off.
At one point, Q blamed Dan Scavino for a 3-second time lag that fucked things up somehow. That's key stuff, right? Like, is Dan Scavino... I mean,
Jason, I saw you posting one of those proofs recently from the Hill. It was like a tweet on the Hill, and it's like, so wait a second. Now they're
the news service, the Hill.
Yeah, I believe so. It was the Hill.
A Q proof from the Hill?
No, it was a screenshot of a tweet. Anyway, it suggested control over like media outlets, and that the people that control the social media accounts of media outlets are now coordinating to post these tweets at the exact same time of something else.
It's not ringing a bell for me. I post a lot of stuff, so I wouldn't be surprised if I forgot something, but I don't remember a Hill article about that. But it's a big part. Brian's totally correct. That's a major...
I mean, there's a whole website dedicated to this. It's called qproofs.com.
Yeah, and they're not all timestamp focused. There's many.
No, they're not. Those are just some of the ones that kind of pop out in my head that I remember. But
how did Q know where the where the Korean summit would be held in Singapore? Why was Q posting that hotel weeks before the thing was announced? There are hundreds and thousands of examples of just like Q's done amazing things that prove its knowledge, its all sorts of things. It's knowledge in different.
They know.
dimensions.
Okay, so yeah, maybe they're connected to Trump and.
Well, basically, basically the way I see it is it's a way for Q to communicate to his audience or its audience. Hey, I'm a real deal. I'm not just bullshit. You know, it's kind of like it's just a way for him to say, you know, here's your proof.
Proof
in a subtle way.
Well, it's very important because, you know, in the context of future proofs past, often, you know, one of the Q mantra repeated things, future proofs past, the biggest thing that the fake news media is the greatest enemy of humanity. That's Trump's claim. Whether Q said it or not, I'm not sure, but that's Trump's claim, and that was my claim. That's many other people. When people see that Q had outwitted, called out the media for over 2 years while they systematically ignored it, dissed it, dissuaded attention towards it, etc., there is a wonderful document for all of humanity and all future possibility where people can see this sort of corrupt, this is what fake corporate news and tyranny actually looks like. Compare it to Q, this was available in public, and this is how it was modulated and interfaced, causing the frictions with society. The legacy of that is the greatest proof. And all these other Q proofs show that the mainstream media has been missing the most important story, the giant pink elephant in the room, and they're talking about racism. They're talking about, you know, XYZ.
Yeah, I will say that one of the most frustrating things regarding the media to me is that is the things that it focuses its attention on. And if you're paying attention to, if you're observing the Q phenomenon at all, you get all this news data that you just never see on the mainstream news. I mean, and it's not like it's not available to you. It's just not focused on. So, like, you know, whether it's, you know, some Senate hearing or something that happened in some FISA related thing or something that the government did that, you know, that is like huge, like a huge deal, yet it doesn't get any news coverage. And the only way you'd know about it is if you were some, like, I don't know, some guy that like watches C-SPAN all the time, or, you know, is paying attention to the White House press releases or something like that. That's the only way you'd know about it, or you're following Q, right? And it's just like, why is that? Why does the media not focus on these stories that are actually really important? And it's just constantly feeding a narrative, a divisive narrative of, you know, whatever, racism or social justice or whatever it wants to push.
Right.
The way that the media has been used is going to be studied a long time. Today I saw a headline from NBC. They said, like, John Brennan is worried. The word worried and John Brennan's name was in the headline, and I don't remember what it said he was worried about. But this idea, like panic in DC, you know, is common Q parlance mantra type thing. John Brennan is worried.
Concerned.
And I go, okay, what's he worried about? And I start watching the video, and they're talking about Trump in the mail-in voting stuff. And I'm scratching my head. I'm like, this. Why? And he goes into like full clown, like he's ex-CIA director, and he just goes into, we all know Trump's bad, and I've never been more worried about the state of our country. And toward the end of this like 4-minute clip or something, the woman interviewing him says, so they're starting to call these Senate Intel Committee, they're starting to make subpoenas. Are you willing to testify in front of this Senate? You know, And he goes, oh, yeah, of course I will. I'd be happy to, even though the whole thing's just a political hoax. I'd be happy to testify, just like I did with John Durham. Click, end of interview. Who knows where has there been a disclosure? Who has Durham interviewed? We're getting told right now, oh, Brennan and about 30 other people from the Obama administration are getting called before closed-door Senate investigations. In the Republican, they're just doing Republican stuff over there in that closed-door hearing. It's just political game. We haven't heard pip squeak about what John Durham's actually been investigating, or what Barr's been investigating, or what happened with John Huber. So in this interview, it's in the MSNBC channel, but I'm telling you, because I've read Q, I was able to pick up what's actually important in this 4.5 minutes of bullshit, and this, like, the headline combined with this piece, and you've got an enzymatic reaction. You can actually tell what's going on. Without that, right? There's no news about John Durham. It's literally it's a blank spot because of how investigations are handled. But they got Durham to they got Brennan to get up and tell his own death story, his own execution date. That's how things are being run. It's more mysterious. I can't tell you how it's being run or who's in charge or what's going on. But it's very stacked. The face forward stuff is not face forward.
You lost me, but
you're going to go back and edit it. So just like future proofs past, you're going to have a long.
But I want to share something real quick. I want to share what the tweet that I found. Okay, you see this?
Kushner says yes. Oh, hell
okay.
Yeah. That shit's hot.
This is the Hill.
Yeah. Okay.
And what's being pointed at here is that the Hill tweeted at 1:41 a.m. and then here's Q posting about Alice and the Mad Hatter at 1:41 p.m. Almost 2 years prior, and this is pointed to like it's somehow significant.
Well, that's a good example of it. Could be, it could not. There's the Hill. There's John.
But basically,
Solomon.
you're saying that now what's being suggested here is that that the Hill, whoever runs the social media accounts, is now basically part of the plan somehow, participating with Q. And is coordinating to have things tweeted out at this exact time.
That post may or may not be suggesting that. I think it's more along the lines of, what an interesting coincidence.
Well, yeah,
this
is the stuff that I run into over and over and over again when I'm looking into this stuff. It's like, okay, this like plan just keeps growing and growing and growing, and there's more people that are involved, and blah blah blah.
What do you know about the Hill in their role that might make that? What do you know about the Hill that might be related to Q? Does anything
I don't know, but I'm sure you're going to connect it to like the Bermuda Triangle and
no.
Hitler and Jesus Christ and.
I can try and weave all that in, but just two names. Let's start basic. Do you know who John Solomon is?
No.
Do you know who Sarah Carter is?
No, you're dropping all these names on me.
Okay.
And
John Solomon works for the Hill. Sarah Carter she runs her own news service, but she's mostly associated with Fox. There was a place where they actually told their story of meeting like Men in Black kind of stuff, where they got put on task a couple of years ago.
Men in Black.
And they told that story maybe in like a Fox forum. Somebody knows, but they were interviewed about how did they get involved in getting these their sources related to the FISA investigations, the impeachment. They always had the insider knowledge.
Okay, all right. So you're basically saying there are some people at the Hill that
one person especially in particular.
I gotta tell you, man, to time the tweet though.
Right. Right, I hear you.
They got to go to the intern who's in charge, and they're like, "Look, we need to you need you to post this like Mad Hat, this Alice in Wonderland thing."
You might be right about that, or there might be other automated ways to get things to happen. And this is
it's true. You can schedule tweets. It's true.
Yeah. And this is one of those. We notice so many coincidences, and Q as a social media community, the decoders, are willing to take in hundreds of irrelevant synchronicities.
I got you. Hundreds, thousands, millions, right?
And we will dig
I get it.
up.
And I got to tell you, man.
The mob bosses.
I got to tell you, man. It seems like a giant. It seems like a giant waste of time and energy and potential. It just seems like.
What should all these people be doing, Mark?
It's like Q, you're right that Q is social engineering. It is. Yeah, it's not a conspiracy theory. It is a conspiracy
in motion. We're doing
to hijack their brains, to sell them this mythic story of good versus evil that they can participate in.
I think this is the part where Marshall's going to teach us all how to use our brains properly in this day and age, and have the real technology of.
I'm just saying. Look. You've given 1,000 of your theories. I'm just going to give my one little theory right now, and you're going to graciously allow me to do that. You're going to
on your show, yeah.
You're somehow going to find the self-discipline to be quiet for 5 seconds. But
he can do it. I know he can do it.
But basically, I mean,
just bite your finger. Yep. Oh, he's counting. You better hurry.
To me, it's sad. It's like it just seems like so much, like such a waste of energy and potential and creativity. It's like
okay,
really,
can we go
this
back?
Is what you're, it's like this is what you're working on. Like this is what you're using all of your potential for. No. And I get it from your perspective. It's like, yeah, well, we're saving the world. Well, what else could, what could be more important than that?
No. I'm not.
I know how you think, though. I know you think that your participation in this is supporting some kind of cataclysmic, world-changing event that's going to
liberate keep my attention for
humanity from the Matrix and help to topple all these, parasitical, predatory institutions.
Yeah, that's part of it. That wouldn't keep my attention for very long. But it's a big part for many people.
Maybe, and if that's not really happening, then this is a giant waste of energy and people's potential. Their brain cycles are like.
Isn't that what we do on this planet?
Let's map timestamps of tweets and
Do you know anybody doing something more productive with their time at this point?
Yeah,
anybody?
I'm doing a lot more. Me, Bryan, and
what are you guys doing that's better than that?
Bryan,
What makes it better?
Bryan's running a business. He's paying people. He's providing a service. Right? Do you mind if I talk about it?
No, I don't want to go for it.
You run a plumbing company, right?
I do, yeah.
Okay. Fixing people's pipes is more important than connecting timestamps.
How do you know that? Okay, let's get back to that question.
You're not producing anything. You're not creating anything. It's just
no.
Let's make connections and play this giant game. Okay.
What
is the human organism? I completely appreciate.
Okay, Bryan, go ahead. What were you going to say, Bryan?
All I'm going to say is that I think, Marshall, you're being a little bit too harsh. I don't think. People are going to waste their time on.
That's my take.
I mean, better this than maybe some other things. But what I will say is that I don't think it's. I think that there is something here. I think there's something here. I don't know if it's as out there as like some of the ideas that Jason's
Right, liberating
God.
from the electromagnetic.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about any of that, but I do think that it's a psyop. I do think that it's probably is run by the government or run by elements in the government. I do think that at that level, it's probably true. And so that, for me, that makes it interesting enough that I want to track it and I want to pay attention to it and I want to figure out what the hell's going on because, and whether or not it's for good or evil, I haven't made that determination, but it is an interesting narrative.
Okay.
To me, and so that's why I follow it.
Okay,
That's why
I'll give you that.
Time on it.
Okay, I'll give you that. But then, what is the relationship of the community to that? The Q operation, Q narrative. What do you see as the relationship of the community to that?
Which community?
The Q community.
Okay. What is the relationship of the Q community to
the
that?
Followers?
I think it varies. I think it varies greatly. I mean, you've got people that this is their life, and that on that end of the spectrum, and then you've got, on the opposite end of the spectrum, people who are spending their life trying to tear it down for some reason, whether that's an ideological reason or whatever.
Who do you know like that?
Oh, I don't know, man. But
do you see anything wrong with the community?
Do I?
Yeah.
No. Not really.
Okay.
It's harmless. I think it's harmless.
Okay, right. I mean, I agree in terms of, the mainstream media narrative that they're dangerous extremists or whatever. I think that's bullshit.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like chaotic sense making, It's this, every time I sort of like dip my toe into it, it's like pure chaos. It's just like spaghetti theories. And
yeah, I hear you there. I hear you there, but I just want to make it.
Yeah,
I hear you there, but I'm a little bit. I give it a little bit more. I'm a little more generous. Like I'm
right because it's pro-Trump, right? That's why you're.
No, that's not it at all.
Okay.
I mean, as far as I know, from Q's perspective, Trump is just he's just the candidate that would actually be on their side and not just bow down to the establishment. He's just he's just the candidate that they managed to get in office. Finally, someone, right, that's not part of the establishment. And I think as far as that narrative goes, I mean, we can all agree on that. He was a complete outsider that no one expected to win.
I hear you.
And
I think there's some seeds. I think these are the seeds of truth that I see in the Q narrative.
Right. So if there were ever a time for something like Q to take advantage of a sitting president, this would be the time because. Gotcha. Because you have an outsider in the White House.
I want to back.
And but I want to, hold on. Oh, wait, I want to like defend myself for just a second and say that, just describe what my personal issues are here, which is that, again, it has to do with the chaotic sense making. Okay. I recognize the times that we live in. Very chaotic times and sense making. Nobody knows how to make sense of things anymore. And so what humanity as a whole needs right now is clarity. And so I invest a lot of my time and energy into providing clarity about things. And I see the whole Q narrative as an incubator for like ambiguity and chaos and confusion. And on that basis alone, I'm opposed to it. I'm opposed to anything that is promoting chaos and ambiguity and confusion right now.
Oh, good. Okay.
That's you call that Eon's razor. Okay, I slice right through anybody, and we got into this in our first discussion, Brian, on socialism.
Yeah,
and how basically socialism means different things to different people, and we basically disambiguated it. We brought clarity to it. And so, but there are people, and Robert Conan Ryan, actually, he made this point to me afterwards, which is that there are people that want to promote ambiguity because ambiguity creates a more a greater sort of umbrella, right? You can create larger movements by promoting ambiguity. Because if we all, we're all socialists, we can band together, and I'm this kind of socialist, and you're that kind of socialist, but we're not being really clear about what socialism means, then we can all sort of band together. But as soon as you start to get really clear and specific about things, you start to lose that, sort of broad umbrella reach. So I don't know.
So what is
this is my personal issue.
Yep.
I'm saving the world by fighting the forces of ambiguity, and so that's where I'm coming from. Okay.
Okay. So fighting the forces of ambiguity, Jason. What do you have to say about Q being a force for ambiguity?
Well, I think the thing that's sticking in my head at the moment is the silliness of, on one hand, saying that Q is trying to bring everything down to the lowest common denominator. We're just going to make this is good and this is bad, and it's a cohesive force around this simple principle that says this is good, this is bad, follow me. Marshall often refers to it as a cult. I think he's been gracious enough not to in this time. At the other hand,
cult with a Q.
This thing, yeah, we're
QULT.
On the other hand, Q is a force of ambiguity, right? Nobody can make sense of this thing. It's a code that nobody will ever be able to figure out, which says, maybe a computer can figure out. This is the smartest fucking thing anybody's ever seen. And when Q gets discussed, you get this hodgepodge of real chaos along the lines of where both of these sort of ideas are getting tossed about simultaneously just to keep, let's not actually look at Q oh my God, this world is changing and it's like a spacecraft landed and is, flipping the switches on our whole planet.
I can't hear, I hear what you're saying. You're saying, yeah, there is a simplistic kind of core of the narrative, and then around it there is just this, around the nucleus there's this protoplasm of mystery and
an electron cloud,
and everybody's just I don't know, what does this mean? What does that mean? Let's look at the timestamp.
Okay, I want to back up.
If I were Q and I was a responsible human being that was that cared about humanity and cared about the chaotic sense making going on right now, I'd be all right, dudes, chill with the timestamp shit. All right, calm the fuck down.
Well,
provide some fucking guidance, dude, to your community, because it's fucking. I mean,
I'm sure. I bet you're going to get contacted, and they're going to ask you to run this operation because your ideas are probably a lot better than theirs. But in the meantime, we have to deal with these military intel losers leading this thing, and we don't have Marshall running the show.
I mean, Q has. I've said this to Jason. Hold on, I've said this to Jason before that Q turns truth into drug addiction. It's dropping these little Q drops, and people just
yeah.
Q.
We're like Freud out there trying to figure out how the machine works.
Crack with a Q.
I think that those are funny ways if you want to characterize the thing.
That's just how I see it, man. I'm just seeing. I'm trying to speak to a particular pathology or something.
I want to try to. I want to pretend to justify my existence for a minute.
Truth as drug addiction.
It can be.
This is my crazy theory, man. I mean, I'm not talking about like the flat Earth or whatever, but
I really would not want to talk about that. You're bringing up important stuff, okay?
Good.
Like the issue that we are very immature as individuals and as a society in terms of knowing what is entertainment as compared to what is meaningful action, what is soulful, what is personally relevant, and what is personally, collectively, my contact with the collective, what's relevant. You have said maybe 10 minutes ago were saying this is a way, it pisses you off that people are wasting their time looking at blah, 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 talking about Q, getting high off their truth rocks. It bothers you. People should be doing better things.
Truth rocks.
Okay? And I fucking honor plumbers. I honor professions. But at the time when the MSM is so narrow, medicine, every industry is being exposed as very problematic. The people who have been willing to go, whoa, check this out, and to think along with Q, and to look at 6 different MSM articles and compare them and think about them and articulate something out of that?
Yeah.
Compare that to the so-called NPC, like, they told me this, I turned over here, they told me the same thing, I turned over here, they told me the same thing. Compare that chaos of like, wait, what is going on here? And they're talking.
The MPQs have more randomization functions in their code.
Many, many more. Flexibility, creativity, frictions, action, responsibility, a sense of like,
you make it sound fascinating, but
that is very.
So when Bryan
that is something to honor people for, not say get a fucking life. Okay.
So when Bryan talks about it, it seems very reasonable, and I can totally like listen to him talk about it.
I like how Bryan talks about it better than I like how I talk about it too. But that's
good. Yeah,
good enough.
Good. And then when you talk about it,
I'm just gonna. Damn. All right.
I'm not even going to talk about you, Jason. I'm just going to talk about like when I dip my toe into the community around it. That's when I'm like, okay, there's something fucked up here. There's something pathological here. There's chaos. And me personally, in this time, this is a time of chaos. I don't want to be promoting more chaos. And I think anybody that's promoting chaos is a fucking asshole.
Okay.
And so
that's nice.
We're here.
Part of the reason it's chaotic is you're in
Bryan,
the middle of a war, dude. The Q showing up. This is war. I've got Nina 99 red balloons floating in the summer sky. Panic! There's a red alert. There's something here from somewhere else. The war machine screams to life, opens up its eager eye. Blah 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 blah. So this is war. You're touching into this field, and
right. War is chaos.
It is pure chaos. And if you're going to diss the people trying to get brightness and thinking and clarity, if you're going to diss the people trying to sort the shit from the shinola and find,
I'm not going to diss them. I'm not going to diss them. I'm going to diss the dude that's promoting the QHAOS.
Wait, what? QHAOS. Chaos? CH.
Chaos. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is. It is epistemological chaos. It is spaghetti epistemology.
Yeah. I think that you're touching on something that I have a lot of issues about. Second grade comes after first grade. Third grade comes after second grade. There are things. A lot of frictions are happening because we don't have access to technology, and it's noisy in a first grade classroom. in ways that is not noisy in a 5th grade or a high school classroom. We are being activated by this operation. Different people are taking on different roles and producing different functions from different parts of their being. There is so much chaos around it, and it is precisely the chaos of war and bright possibilities, right? It's a messianic myth, and it's a context where people are wanting salvation politically and psychospiritually.
Right.
In the Jewish tradition, there is both. There is supposed to be a co-arising where a political Messiah makes it possible for the spiritual messianic functions to show up on this planet again.
Okay.
That's with that context, the behaviors of people in different states of what's their situation with their family, what's their situation with their job, what's their situation with social media, did they just get attacked by shills, did Facebook just ban them and then you tried to say something and they went, fuck you shill, and blocked you, right? These are common situations right now. Did you guys see Stranger Things? Did you guys see the Netflix program?
Yeah.
I saw the first season. I got bored.
Okay, good enough. Where
reality was more
what's shown in there is that one lie from the official agency turned a town upside down. Everybody just wanted to know, is this kid alive or dead? What happened? But the lie about that kid being dead being officially mandated through the school, through all the events, made the mom crazy, made the family crazy. And it was just a lie to protect, the real deal behind the scenes. We have so many of those in operation right now. The chaos is not to be blamed on the people trying to go one media story about COVID, about Saudi Arabia, about any topic, about the Queen's power.
Okay. Yes.
One media story is into the brains of how many people, and if it's based on bullshit, that story is pulling torques and balances through their body, their mind, their electromagnetic field, all their relationships, into the core of the earth, into the patterns of genetic history. One lie from one media story.
Okay.
Now you got to start introducing a medical factor. What starts to unlock all these patterns and allow truth to sort itself out?
Dude,
what will do that?
We're in chaos right now. I have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
But
I don't know what's going on.
Editing software, and you're going to go.
You're basically a living embodiment of Q chaos, and I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, okay, Brian, maybe you should start talking now.
Okay.
No, but wait.
And what happens when he does? What does he bring?
Okay.
What does he bring just by his manner?
What am I doing?
I just want to. Okay, so look. Yes, the world is chaotic. There's all these different factors.
Okay, Mark.
It's also simple. It's also clear.
Yes. It's both and, right? As we.
This is a Wilbur group, right? Can't we integralize?
We can't integralize, I think, because I see what Jason's saying actually about the chaos of war, and if you follow the Q narrative, then you know that this is in the middle of a war.
I get it. Yes,
and
reality is chaos.
Reality is chaos, and so and I'll just go back to what we were discussing kind of before at the very beginning of the podcast, where we were talking about how. The reason why Q can't be more explicit in some of these posts may be because of either national security or legal issues, whether something's top secret or not or whatever, has some security clearance. Who knows? Who knows what it is? But what he can do is he can say, hey, look in this direction, right? And then that may cause a little bit of chaos.
Can't he also falsify things? I mean, say, no, not that, no, not that, no, not that. I mean, can't...
Yeah, he does
happened.
That.
Where did Alex Jones go?
Couldn't they...
Well, no, actually he does the opposite. He does what's called queuing. So if someone hits on something that's on the right path, he cues them by taking a clip of whatever it was that they posted and posting that onto a board, as in saying, "This, you guys." So he may not say no, or he may not often say no, this isn't the direction you're supposed to take, but he does monitor what people are saying and then glean the correct stuff and go, boom, okay, this is it.
Sometimes, not always.
Don't
assume that.
Don't assume their gender, okay?
Please.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Please.
They,
could be a she. It could be a she.
I'm just going to use Z from now on.
Gina Haspel.
That's what Z does.
Yeah, right? Did you see where Gina Haspel showed up at might have been Bush's funeral. She showed up at a major event in a dress full of white hats, like made of white hats. The current director of the CIA, who took over after Pompeo left, became Secretary of State. The issues of chaos and order are major in terms of the sciences involved. To think in terms of social engineering, what we call chaos theory is, and what we refer to as chaos, is a pattern that has not been seen completely. There really is no chaos in this universe. And that fact alone can discriminate when we talk about good and evil. What do we mean? What is real about good and evil? Chaos is a limited view, and I think the reason to be upset about things that only provide chaos is it doesn't provide access to the truth of things, which is ultimately a clarity, ultimately a radical kind of clarity, and a simplicity. So the questions that would unify, that are completely beyond anybody's party lines, are: what are the technologies that would let us see our thinking processes in harmony with nature, in harmony with self, like a vertical line of self, and the horizontality of this world, this planet, this neighborhood, and the cosmos? What would let us see our thinking and see where are the places where truth elucidates vision, understanding? These are highly technical questions that require some sort of a subtle measuring of the sensitivity of the human organism. And that type of technology has been kept secret as education has been managed under a materialist ideology and a falsehood, while radical sciences into subtle energetics are going on in secret backrooms, kept secret for reasons of national security. In that is all the lies that generate the chaos of our warfare world. We would not have people complaining about racism if there wasn't social stratification based on falsehoods about resources, the Saudi empire. If there were resources available, somebody go like, they don't like me because I'm Jewish? They don't like me because I'm black? I don't care, because it doesn't take a toll on my life if there's no, I don't get the job.
Let me just ask you something, Jason, because I hear a lot of what you're saying, and it sounds to me like it's related to some of these theories around sort of black projects, 0-point energy, studying alien spacecraft, all of that kind of stuff. That's what it sounds to me like you're connecting that to.
I think all that stuff's related. It is, but it's possible to ask these questions without going that far off the deep end. I do think that the Montauk Project is the best description of, have they tried this already? Is there something already in motion on this planet along these lines? But without all that, you can just point to the same way that Q is kept like this from the mainstream media, just like, you don't go there. The acupuncture system is like that in modern medicine. In Western conventional medicine, it's like the acupuncture system is a myth.
Not anymore.
As though they can't match, but it's not informing.
It's being studied, in Western medicine.
In very, very narrow ways.
Sure.
And it's one example of like many in terms of things that are very easily palpable within human experience as compared to what the official sciences are even allowed to talk about. The types of lies and chaos generated from those lies prevent effective questioning about our basic institutional factors, about what's running our educational system, about what our medicine is made of, about what money is, and what is our label, right? You guys did that webcast about Marxism and socialism, and you got to the point of like, what is the means of production these days? And I was listening to it, and I'm like, dude, it's data bundle. All they need at this point, the means of production, is DNA. The means of production is mind, attention, DNA, light. Light as an active quantum agency. While we're having this discussion, this planet is getting upgraded with Elon Musk's Starlink system. We're getting gridded to a quantum internet. And I don't think any of the three of us have much of a clue what that means. I mean, I can describe in terms of like processing, but what does it mean in terms of eco-harmony and what it's doing to our brainwaves? And to the parts of us that have always operated on quantum principles. The means of production is psychic. I know Marshall's interested in Buckminster Fuller. And he championed this idea that a question and an idea expands reality for everybody in all times and all spaces. And he meant that literally. A fresh question, open space, develops life, produces wealth, produces goodness, produces love in a field of gravity. And he saw that as, what can the human individual do to think globally, literally, and cosmically, and to organize their life to the totality first and foremost, the principle of allness and universe. And then, how do I align myself here?
Okay.
What goes on with this mind?
This is a very lofty vision.
Bring us back, Marshall.
Huh?
So bring us back, Marshall.
Yeah, this is a very lofty vision, but I don't think this is really what Q is after.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I think...
Would you like to read it before you find it?
I think you're adding that whole, like, multi-dimensional,
Do you want me to go through
intergalactic,
the
quantum...
and show you where that becomes relevant? Which post
I think maybe as a topic of another episode, but I mean, I understand how you're making these connections. I think, but I don't know that I necessarily agree with them. But I would say, as far as what Q is doing out in the open, as far as what he's publishing, what he's putting out there, there's really nothing of that in there.
Expand your thinking. And things along the lines of what MK Ultra is, what harvesting the Matrix is. The reference to the Matrix movie is that
everybody makes reference to the Matrix now. It's like
you said, like something along the lines of like, is that actually just a movie?
Yeah.
Everybody says that.
Q references a lot of movies. Recently, he's been referencing the Red October
and
a lot. So I think he makes a lot of movie references, and I'm not exactly sure what they all mean, but he makes
aside from whether it's Q stuff, though, aren't the questions I'm asking the type of questions that we should be asking about our sciences, our education?
Yeah, they're cool questions.
They're integrative questions. Those are questions for the integral community.
I love to talk about that stuff with you, and it just doesn't seem highly relevant to the plan. Actual Q plan. That's maybe you projecting your own hopes.
Yeah, those are some of the types of interpretations I've made. I'm not just going like, oh, this Q thing seems like Sparky and Nito. I'm going to take all my Bucky Fuller ideas and peg them together. There's specific...
Jesus.
There's specific stuff. I did that with my mind.
How much of these sounds are you guys hearing? Because it's like
that's pretty. I mean,
one.
We heard that. That was an interesting one.
Okay,
it's fine. It's not it hasn't been a big deal problem.
It's like, Marshall, you come to the topic of Q like, there's nothing there. This is giving everybody a headache. Why are you spending your time?
I didn't say there's nothing there.
Okay.
I didn't say there's nothing there.
Whatever you're saying, you're kind of been dissing. When I try to pan out to
I don't necessarily. I've said nothing bad about Q.
Okay, come on.
I'm just kidding. I've said that when Bryan talks about it, there are things like, I agree with a lot of the stuff, and there's seeds of truth, and I acknowledge them.
Yeah. It would take me some hours to go coherently through the Q material, taking a look at different batches of stuff, and goes, hey, why would I take these kind of ideas and say, when I read Q, this is what I end up in, and this is what I see happening.
Well, let me suggest
people's
something.
Anecdotal lives.
You can project your hopes onto it. It's kind of like Obama, right? He said, "I'm a blank slate that everybody can project their hope onto."
And if that's the whole story, that's the whole story. But I think I'm a little bit more sophisticated than that. But I'm just a narcissistic.
You are, but Q aren't.
Oh, the most radical social engineering operation any of us have ever seen is probably nowhere near as sophisticated as moi.
So I think we're starting to go long on time, and I just kind of want to.
We're about 2 hours in.
Yeah, I want to wrap this up in a bow. What I would like out of this podcast, and we've gone pretty much down every rabbit hole I can think of. Thank you, Jason, for that. What I would like for people to get out of this podcast, or especially integral-minded people to get out of this podcast, is not to just dismiss Q out of hand because the media is pushing some narrative about it that in my experience, having watched Q for about a year from a fairly neutral perspective, I've got to say the media narrative is just not true. I don't see any accuracy in it. So that should tell you that should tell you a lot right there. And just do if you're interested in it at all, and maybe you're not, just observe it. Take the 10-foot pole approach that I do. Observe it. Maybe listen to Praying Medic a little bit and see if you can glean something from it, because I think it's pretty interesting anyway. I mean, it's an interesting narrative, and I really actually kind of enjoy listening to it and kind of following it. That would be my take.
And I look forward to hearing whatever you tell me about it, so I don't have to.
So you don't have to do that?
Wade in the swamp that is the Q community. So.
But I want to thank Jason for coming on and giving us his perspectives. They're certainly very interesting, and who knows? Maybe all of that stuff is true. You just never know.
I had a blast. I really appreciate you guys asking me to show up. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Me too. All right, is this the end?
Wrap it up.
The end.
All right, and everybody, whoever's watching, if you're still actually here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because this is on YouTube, and that's what you're supposed to tell people to do in order to build your channel. So,
smash it.
Smash.
That's what Tim Pool says. Smash the subscribe button. All right, cool.
All right, I think we succeeded in integrating this.
Yes, we did. Good job.
That was fun.